So I'm on the phone today with Reynolds, the lead singer of Enter Shikari, and he's got a new book out called Dear Future Historians, the Lyrics and Exegesis of Reynolds for the Music of Enter Shikari, 2006 to 2019, which is your third book and is to be released on the 28th of May, is that right?
You probably know better than me. That sounds about right. Yeah, 2 weeks, I think. Yeah.
So what determined you to write and publish this new book?
I think I've always been very encapsulated by music and by specifically lyrics. And for me, I love knowing in every detail really what a band, a lyricist, a singer is trying to get across, what the emotions they're trying to convey, and realise the inspirations that made the artist, present the music, create and present the music. And so it's kind of fulfilling, almost like a childhood thing for me, for growing up with my favourite bands, and wish that I knew every detail, because I was so enthusiastic about music then, and I still am. So I thought I would kind of fulfill that dream as someone with that degree of enthusiasm would hopefully appreciate knowing the various kind of influences that went into the lyrics and what Shikari is about. So this is as you said, kind of 2006 to 2019. It just encapsulates everything in one place.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting for fans to listen, be able to read and understand what's actually being portrayed in a song. So it combines your first two books, Dear Future Historians and The Spark. So to someone who may have read those two previous books before, what additions are there?
There isn't a great deal. I mean, this is more of, it's not really a third book, it's just the kind of bringing together of everything so far. There's all the photos in you, and then there's also a few extra essays that weren't included in any of the original books. And then there's also our new track, Stop the Clocks, which still hasn't been released, but the lyrics and the essay will be in the new book. But yeah, it was just because the Dear Future Historians only ever came out as a special edition hardback. So there was only ever about, I think it was 3,000 copies. So this is now just kind of giving people a chance to pick not just Dear Future Historians, but the whole thing, who may not have had that chance when it first came out, because it sold out quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then the same with The Spark, that was only a very sort of small paperback. And so, yeah, this just kind of brings it all together.
So in the book, in the essays, you dissect specific lyrics, revealing sort of what they mean and how they are meant to be interpreted. Are there any specific essays that you might think might surprise people or you find particularly interesting to talk about?
The whole process was really interesting for me because, we've been a band for so long now, but a lot of the original tracks and ideas and things that I was trying to get across, I'd just forgotten about. I'd forgotten what inspired most of that first album. So for me, it was quite an interesting experience. It was almost like being a detective, really, going back through old lyric books and notes and almost working out what I was trying to get across. And one of the interesting things that I could see now with a bit of hindsight was just how a lot of people had commented, and the media sort of take with our second album was when we sort of became political, I suppose, if you like. It was our first politicised album. But what was really interesting is the kind of the withholding and the sort of the desire to make a political stands and speak about social justice and various issues in the first album, but how it was shrouded in metaphor, and it was shrouded in sort of more fantastical lyrics, which I found really interesting, just looking back, and because I'm not the most assertive person in real life, so I think back then, before I had the confidence to address a lot of issues, they were the kind of the stand was there and the enthusiasm was there, but it was kind of more hesitant. So that was really interesting. So I think people will be surprised by some of the essays for the throughout the tracks in the first album, tracks like Mothership, Johnny Sniper, and Shikari, our first track on that album, are all actually have quite sort of big political leanings. So yeah, it was a kind of a delve down memory lane and a realization and a bit of introspection. It was interesting.
It's interesting to know that you sort of wrote it in hindsight, not while you were actually making the music. From more recent times, you actually looked back and had to sort of decipher what you were actually talking about in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back in those days, I would have never even thought about doing something like this. I think it's only now that we've built up this big catalogue of music and of lyrics that I think, there's a certain percentage of our fan base that would really appreciate getting the full sort of, look at what we've been trying to achieve over these years.
So something which is pretty evident throughout the whole course of the book is sort of the growth and development of you and the band. So what do you think have been the driving forces behind all the changes that have gone on?
I think there's always been a real, not even just willingness, but an actual need to progress, especially musically. We're quite fidgety as people, all of us really in the band, so we like pushing each other and discovering, new ways of expressing ourselves, I guess, effectively. Discovering new techniques and new instruments and new ways to put forth melody and rhythm. That's really been something that's kind of kept us going. And then I think also each album, sonically has sounded very different, but it's been a sort of, each album is a few steps along the same road, if you like. The main kind of inspirations of our band have always been a unity, really, just trying to provide a space and a reason for people to come together indiscriminately, because I think so much of our world is becoming increasingly divisive, especially in the last 5 years, and also with the kind of the downfall of religion, there isn't really anywhere where that sort of offers just a way to sort of celebrate our shared fate and our shared human vulnerabilities, and to come together and to celebrate being alive, really. So that's just one of the things that we've been trying to achieve, just simple unity and perseverance and community. And that's always been a sort of a steady rock of what the band has been. And then around that, we've been trying to express that desire in different ways and with different sounds.
So one thing that I did notice more with recent music, like from The Spark, is a lot of kind of old fans, like sort of, I think you described them on Twitter as take to the skies, where's the breakdown fandom. There's a reasonable amount of kind of, I'm not going to say hate, because that's incorrect, but sort of pushback, sort of, oh, this is not in Shikari. Sort of, how did you deal with that? What do you think of the idea of you moving on so differently?
I mean, I think you have to expect it. I think a lot of people, especially in sort of the most recent generations, have grown up with bands who have released albums that do sound almost identical again and again. And so they've grown up around this normality of music being quite predictable. And it's quite comforting. If you listen to a band and they sound a certain way, and you have lots of memories that then get invested into that band, and if you have an album that becomes the sound of your summer, it's quite an emotional commitment. And so then when a band comes along who's changing completely their sound on every album, it's quite difficult. It's a difficult thing to wrestle with, because you want that consistency and you want that comfort, effectively. But I think for us, as I said before, if the most important thing for us is that the music is honest, and it's this bedrock of integrity to it, and that means we have to be playing and creating music that is oozing out of us, that it's not formulated, and it's not us trying to be what we were 2 years ago again. And that means that progression is key. And I grew up with, my favourite bands have always been everything from Radiohead to David Bowie to the Beatles, like bands that literally do just never stop progressing. And for me, I find it quite soul destroying when a band will release an album and it sounds exactly the same. So I just can't. I expect it. I expect a certain proportion of our fan base not to enjoy everything we put out, and you just all I can say is that this is honestly the music we want to make, and I'm sure they wouldn't want us to be forcing ourselves to make music that we weren't like absolutely exhilarated and excited about. So yeah, you just got to try and understand, and have empathy for everyone and just do what you can.
So one of the essays that I genuinely enjoyed reading as a physics student, I really enjoyed the section on redshift.
Oh, amazing! Yeah,
I do see quite a few elements of sort of cosmology or astronomy popping up in songlets here and there. Do you have like a specific fascination for space and science, and where's it come from?
I mean, I think anyone who's just given a little bit of breathing room to like discover things about our universe just by themselves, I think a lot of the time people have their love for not just cosmology or anything can be beaten out of them by schooling and by education, because it's so sort of rigid, and you're not sort of free to. If something takes your intrigue one morning, you're not able to then look into that and become knowledgeable about that subject. It's quite it's not under your control. So I don't know. It was only after school really that I just kind of had this blossoming love for all just the discovery, and it's quite exciting. Like a lot of kind of more earthly matters have already been discovered, but the universe and the way everything is structured is still just completely up for grabs. A lot of it is still yet to be known. So it's an incredibly fascinating subject, and therefore I think musically it becomes something that is wonderful to write about, because everyone's heard every type of song you could write about love or about hate or specific kind of human behavioral things. So it's nice to be at the sort of the forefront of human knowledge and write about things that haven't really been addressed musically.
With your book out on the 28th, you're touring it, visiting Oxford, Manchester, Bristol and Nottingham. Can you give us an idea of what you're doing on this tour?
So it's just a book signing basically, and then I'm going to do a small acoustic set as well. Still trying to work out a set list for that, so maybe sort of six or so songs, I think. And then hopefully, if I've got time, just hanging out, and if anyone has any questions about the book or whatever, hopefully it won't be sort of, your typical rushed signing that's just like, hello, shake hands, sign a book, bye. Hopefully it will be a bit more relaxed, and can speak to people and see what their take on the book is.
With an acoustic set, how do you kind of come up with the songs that you want to turn into acoustic, given the kind of the genre that Enter Shikari are in? How do you go from that to a stripped down acoustic set? It's pretty difficult. I guess sometimes it may be even at the beginning of writing a song, I may have written it in a more stripped down manner, so there'd always be like a general idea, a general route that I could go down if it was going to ever be stripped down to an acoustic track. But most of them, it's just a kind of trial and error, just experimenting really. What kind of works with that degree of, it's forced minimalism effectively. It's just me and six strings, so it's quite difficult. There's certainly some songs that just wouldn't work. But it's always quite exciting. It's a good sort of test, it's always I think it's a good test of like a good song or a good pop song, and I mean pop in a very broad sense. If it translates to one human being and an acoustic guitar, then its melody is obviously strong. So it's just a case of working out which ones work and getting your head down and practicing. Awesome. So one final question. If you could own either the DeLorean or the TARDIS, which one would you choose?
Oh my god. I guess it has to be the DeLorean.
Nice.
It's just it's classic, isn't it? It's just retrofuturism at its most ridiculous and beautiful.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been a
Yeah, no
pleasure
problem.
talking to you.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, brilliant. Thank you so much.